I'm Daniel from KML. Today I'm going to talk about the planning process and what I learned and how it was for me. So I've recently started getting into larger HMOs that require planning. So in the Birmingham area where we typically invest, that's any above 6 rooms or over 3 floors, pretty much standard within the Birmingham area. So I've never used planning before. My initial thoughts were I would get an architect to draw, and then we would submit to planning, and then once we get planning we can immediately work. But what actually happens is you have to get planning, you get the initial drawings which you have to pay for, and then you submit those to planning and they'll come back at you with a few queries or questions. This takes up to 8 weeks. And then you have to pay for that. And then once you get planning, also you have to get the building regs drawn. Again, this costs money, and if you do get planning, you have to then submit. There'll be some conditions on the plans. So there'll be, for instance, on my one, they wanted a tree planted in a bit of greenery on the site, which again delays it. So I had all these builders ready and willing to go, and it was costing me money because they were wanting to start work. And also I assumed that architects would all be the same. So I'm going to show you the difference of drawings, and I paid equal amounts for these drawings, and the planner actually came back and said, no, you need to go and get these done properly. There's no way we could accept these plans. So one looks like it's been drawn by someone who's in. So I'm just going to show you this. So so these are the first plans. As you can see, there's not much detail, and I didn't know that this was this wasn't good enough. Now that I do know, it's actually quite laughable that I accepted this and paid for this, because I could have probably done this on paint. So then I found an architect who did these drawings for me. As you can see, much more professional. Gives me the floor space, gives me the ensuite, gives me the bed, gives me the measurements for the actual ensuites, the doors, how much space they need to open, gives me the corridor width, also shows me what is a partition wall, what's going to be on the existing house. So you see, oh, sorry for fingers, let me get a pointer. So these are going to be partition walls, not solid walls, and then obviously these constructed walls are going to be brick walls along with this one. So going back to the first one, like completely laughable really. Yeah, and these are both qualified architects. Again as well, so the architect that I first paid didn't take costs into account, so I found a good one that took costs into account, and now we're going to see this extension here at the kitchen. We're now only going to be using two additional beams instead of 3 beams, because we were going to come out here as well. So we still get the same amount of space, but obviously the costs have come down, which is very, very good. So I'm going to show you some of the conditions, talk you through some of the conditions that happened when I actually got the planning. So at this stage, so I'll just recap. You get your architect to come round, do a survey. He'll do the plans. He'll then consult you with the plans. The drawings will then get submitted to the council. This then takes 8 weeks once you've got the registered number from the architect. Initially as well, with the first architect, he didn't make me pay the right fee, so we paid the wrong fee because he was unsure, which should have really started the alarm bells ringing. So that delayed it even more because they came back. No, Liam, that isn't a wig. Then oh, you've messed me up now. Anyway, so then it'll come back, you've got planning, and then you need to get the building regs drawn, and then you also need to get you can either use the council or use private building reg firms. The private ones are much faster, and they'll say your plans are good enough or not. So I imagine if I'd have gone with the first one, they would have said no, because this architect isn't very good. And I'm questioning whether he was an actual architect. So make sure that you look at the previous drawings and that you are comfortable with what the architect can do, because the difference is obviously stark. So there'll be conditions as well, which the architect will need to take you through. So they want the fence down the front of the property to be taken out. They want because the property is completely tarmacked, they want some grass, and they want to make the property look and aesthetically pleasing for the street. But other than that, just be prepared that planning takes a lot longer than I thought it would. You're looking at maybe 4 months if you've got a good architect, and you're not meant to start building until you've got everything signed off with the building reg company, as well as the council approving all the conditions. And they'll ask you to pick stuff like what bricks you're going to use, what tiles you're going to use on the top of the property, and there'll be a whole plethora of questions. But once you build that relationship up, the first one's always the hardest. We now know what the council wants, so the architect has obviously learnt from this experience, and now the other 2 applications that are going to go in hopefully should be a lot quicker. I'm just going to answer some questions that some people have. So I'll talk about the project. I've already gone through it previously, but I'll do it again here as you're all there. So these aren't going to be flats. So this is just going to be what's called a HMO, which means house of multiple occupancy. So each person is going to get a room and its own bathroom, and then they're going to share this space here, the kitchen, lounge and diner. So you've got another bedroom here with a nice ensuite, another bedroom here with an ensuite, and another bedroom there, and then you'll have 4 bedrooms at the top. So the reason why we do this is because it cash flows a lot higher than an apartment would be. So this building collectively is going to have 9 people in it, which will give a rent of £500 per calendar month for each room. So that's £4,500 a month. Where if we had 5 flats, the cost would be much higher to purchase those flats, and the rent really wouldn't be too much greater. So that's why most people like to opt for a building of this style, purely because it cash flows higher, and it's in the long run it's a better investment. Right, thanks for tuning in. If you've got any questions, write them down below and I'll answer them later on. Cheers.